It's quite a bit different. This swarm is very robust, and there's a lot of earthquakes. In 2011, we saw a foreshock, a bunch of earthquakes, a large main shock, and then it settled down over a couple days. And so, while certainly there's the possibility that we could be looking at something similar to the 2011 sequence, it is different in the numbers of earthquakes we're seeing, but it certainly is possible that we could see a larger earthquake in this sequence. We continue to see activity in Logan County area.
Is Oklahoma tied in any way to the New Madrid Fault?
The New Madrid Fault is significantly east of us. We have a lot of large faults in our own right. The Mears Fault in southwestern Oklahoma has had large earthquakes on it in the past. The largest earthquake we know of to have occurred in Oklahoma was about 1,300 years ago on the Mears Fault, and it was roughly a magnitude 7 earthquake. So we do have the potential for these large earthquakes.
Well, could all the earthquakes between, say, February 14th and ongoing through February be because something is leading up to a large magnitude quake that might affect the whole state?
It's possible. We don't have any way to predict earthquakes to know when and where and how big these earthquakes will be in the future, so we have no way to know whether these are going to lead into a larger earthquake or not.
Well, one of the things that really caught my attention about these series of quakes were so many citizens calling 911 and saying that they were hearing very loud booms. And the loud boom phenomena has been reported since 2011 all over the United States, Canada, and many parts of the world. USGS has over and over reported there were the booms, but no seismic events. This time in Oklahoma, with all of these loud booms, you've got seismic recordings. What do you think is the link between all the boom reports in Oklahoma now and the seismicity?
Well, here in Oklahoma, people say that the booms are sort of just there or below them. At least that's with the local residents I've spoken to. And so the sound earthquakes generate primarily when you're talking these small earthquakes and close to the local residents, they generate two types of waves, P and S waves. P waves travel with a very similar motion to sound and air. Actually, it's identical. And so they can often create these popping booms when that hits the surface, or they can interact with structures and that sort of thing to make noise. And then people will feel sometimes the S wave as it comes up because it travels a little bit slower.
Well, there was a resident in Logan County, Oklahoma, named Nancy York, who told KOCO-TV, quote, "It felt like bombs going off. It's just a huge, loud noise. And then it's like a reverb from that boom that just shakes the entire house. If I'm experiencing 8 of these in one day, then when does it erupt and become absolutely horrible that takes my house down?" Close quote. What would you say to Nancy York?
Well, I don't know what to say to Nancy York. I'm planning on trying to arrange a town hall meeting. We often do that in areas where we see earthquake activity and residents unsettled. And I can't really say anything to them that calms their fears. I can share with them what we know and what we don't know. And that's, all that I can do as a scientist.
And what would you say to calm her?
I'm not sure I can. I certainly feel for them and feel for the local residents, but there's probably nothing I can say to calm some of these people. All I can do is do my best to understand the earthquakes and understand what we don't know about these earthquakes.
Will the boom phenomena, would it relate to some seismic activity going on in the earth that is not being reported?
Well, some of it may relate to seismic activity, and then there may be bizarre explanations for others. It's I can't speak to anything but the recent experiences here in Oklahoma.
If there was something bizarre geophysically happening in the planet, what might that be?
There's all sorts of bizarre things that happen geophysically in the planet Earth. The North Pole switches to the South Pole at repeated intervals through the geologic past. I mean, there's all sorts of interesting phenomenon that occur, and And we've only been recording these things as scientists for a short time period. So I'm sure that there are plenty of surprises left in store for us.
Well, have you talked with anybody in Homeland Security or any federal agency about increase in seismic activity in Oklahoma and the possibility that it might be tying into something like a gigantic event such as the New Madrid quake?
Well, certainly we inform different state and federal agencies on what we're observing and talk regularly with officials throughout the country and scientists around the country, trying to understand what all the implications for the increased seismic activity in Oklahoma are, and we just continue to move forward with the science.
Well, what do they say to you that they're worried about?
Mostly they're worried about the changes in seismic hazard and addressing how to properly handle those changes as we move forward. I don't think what we're seeing is cause for alarm at this point. It's certainly scientifically interesting, but we don't have enough data to somehow sound any type of alarm.
When does it move to an alarm level when you feel like something's imminent and you need to tell the public?
Well, we'd have to have some ability to tell something's imminent, and I don't think we have that with our science yet.
That you don't know whether it's building up to a large quake or not?
That's correct.
Why is that?
We can't predict earthquakes. We don't understand the physical processes within the earth well enough to predict earthquakes yet. The Tohoku earthquake was a surprise. I mean, all the great earthquakes of the recent past have all been surprises to seismologists. I mean, we knew earthquakes were likely there, and big earthquakes, we just had no idea of when or how big they'd be.
Well, what would give you some kind of an indication that it's going to be serious?
We don't have any early indicators for earthquakes at this point that are reliable. We just don't have that ability to make those assessments ahead of time.
Do you have any understanding of whether there are cave systems, mine, fracking, or anything underground in Logan County?
I know that some rocks contain caves deep within the subsurface. Where those caves are, we don't know. I haven't had a chance to speak with my counterparts at the Corporation Commission to address some other factors such as hydraulic fracturing.
Well, there was the Bowling Green Sutton sinkhole right inside of that Corvette museum recently. And lots of people are saying, is there some link between the sinkhole activity, the seismic activity, the boom activity, the scraping metal sounds? Is there a common cause to all of these things in this Midwestern area of the U.S.?
Yeah, it was pretty impressive.
Well, could it be related to something happening in the earth? Oklahoma isn't that far from Kentucky.
It certainly is possible. The natural world never ceases to amaze us as scientists, but I don't see an established link.
Well, how will you go forward from today with the monitoring seismometers that you have now?
There's roughly 30 monitoring instruments throughout the state of Oklahoma, and we're going to add to those numbers over the next year. What we intend to do is to accurately characterize the earthquakes that occur and share that information with the public and other researchers around the country.
Are you personally worried about a New Madrid earthquake happening in the Midwest now with all this population that we have in the U.S.?
Certainly it would have greater consequences than it did in the early 1800s. We are concerned about these larger earthquakes, and that's why we try and understand where they have the potential to occur and really address those hazards and design safer buildings.
And yet the irony is you don't know when it can go from a swarm to a 7 or above magnitude.
That's correct.